The Colombian right woke up celebrating after Abelardo de la Espriella took the lead in the tightest presidential election in Colombia's recent history, ahead of the left-wing Petro-aligned candidate Ivan Cepeda in a race marked by public security, a stalled economy, drug trafficking, and rejection of Gustavo Petro's political model. De la Espriella, a lawyer, outsider, and known by the nickname Tiger, entered the final stretch with public support from Donald Trump and emerged from the preliminary count being treated by his allies as president-elect. Trump congratulated him, Marco Rubio spoke with him, Javier Milei celebrated, Flavio Bolsonaro rejoiced, and the Colombian left reacted by contesting the result and calling for scrutiny, vote by vote, and a tone of suspicion. Colombia didn't just witness a change in leadership, it saw a major political shift, with the right saying that the time for order has come. Stricter borders, tougher crime fighting, and a stronger alignment with the United States. While Petro tried to downplay the result, saying it was still necessary to wait for the official verification. What made the difference? Why did Petro react? How did Trump get involved? I'll tell you all about that in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. Abelardo de la Espriella won the preliminary count in the presidential runoff with 49.66% of the votes against 48.70% for Ivan Cepeda. According to the initial count, released after almost all the polling stations reported, Colombia has just come out of 4 years of government under Gustavo Petro and put a candidate in the lead who promised to break with the policy of concessions to crime, strengthen security, and bring the nation closer to the conservative bloc that is growing in the Americas. The election took place throughout the entire Colombian territory, with significant weight in the big cities, in regions affected by violence, and also in the overseas vote. De la Espriella managed to turn the issue of insecurity into the driving force of his campaign. The electorate, tired of extortion, kidnappings, drug trafficking, guerrillas, and factions, heard a simple promise: the state would take control again. This message resonated deeply in a nation that had been accumulating fear in the streets and frustration with Petro's so-called total peace policy. Ivan Cepeda tried to present continuity with Petro's project, defended maintaining social policies, dialogue with armed groups, and a tougher environmental agenda against new oil projects. But the race made it clear that a decisive part of Colombia did not want continuity, they wanted a change of course. De la Espriella hit exactly on that point. He accused the Petro government of losing control of security, weakening authority, and allowing criminal groups to advance in sensitive regions. The international reaction came quickly. Donald Trump, who had already declared his support for De la Espriella before the second round, called to congratulate the winner of the preliminary count. Marco Rubio, United States Secretary of State, also confirmed the contact and stated that the Trump administration looks forward to working with the new Colombian government on regional security, illegal immigration, and economic ties. For Washington, the victory opens the way for a Colombia more aligned with the strategy of pressure against organized crime, fragile borders, and drug trafficking networks. Javier Milei joined the celebration with a strong tone. The president of Argentina greeted De la Espriella as part of a wave of economic freedom, security, and confronting transnational crime. Milei's message was seen as another sign that the Latin American right is trying to form a more coordinated political front, with names like Trump, Milei, Bukele, and now De la Espriella appearing in the same field of discourse. Less tolerance for criminals, less bloated government, and more economic partnership with the United States. Flavio Bolsonaro also congratulated the Colombian and stated that right-wing agendas continue to triumph in America. The statement made the news as a direct message to Lula and Petro's camp, which in recent years has tried to sell the idea of a Latin America dominated by left-wing governments. Colombia was an important piece of this bloc, mainly because Petro was president. Now the board shifts in weight. On the streets, La Espriella supporters celebrated as if they had seen a door open after years of tension. In Barranquilla, the city where he gave his speech, there was a gathering of supporters, Colombian flags, yellow national team shirts, and chants against the Petro government. The candidate appeared surrounded by security, spoke to the crowd, and emphasized that he would govern for all Colombians, including those who voted against him. He also emphasized that state authority would be a priority. The most symbolic phrase of the night came when De la Espriella introduced himself as the Tiger of Colombia and took on a victorious tone in front of his supporters. It wasn't just marketing. It was the hallmark of a campaign built on the image of strength, confrontation, and order. He promised mega prisons, tougher measures against cartels, an end to lenient negotiations with armed groups, and the restoration of state control in areas where criminals had become a parallel power. That was the language that won over part of the electorate. Petro reacted differently. The Colombian president called for caution. He spoke of irregularities, and he insisted that it was necessary to wait for the final count. The left tried to turn the narrow margin into a prolonged political dispute. But De la Espriella responded by saying that the result came from the same electoral system that brought Petro to power in 2022, demanding respect for the vote and warning against the social crisis caused by the refusal to accept the preliminary defeat. This point became the center of tension. The Colombian right accused Petrismo of wanting to drag out the election by force. The election also showed a divided Colombia. More than 26.3 million voters participated in the election in a nation with about 41.4 million people eligible to vote. The high turnout revealed that the contest was not lukewarm. Colombia went to the polls knowing it was choosing between two opposite paths, staying on Petro's course under Cepeda or handing over control to a right-wing candidate closer to Trump and tougher on crime. A large part of Colombia wants a change of direction. The economic plan of the new winning side talks about reducing the size of the state, expanding the productive base, reactivating strategic sectors, and improving the environment for businesses. This point speaks directly to the interests of the United States, because Colombia is a historic ally of Washington and a central player in regional security, trade, and migration. In terms of security, the promised change is even stronger. De la Espriella wants to end talks with criminal groups that, according to him, have used negotiations to buy time, gain territory, and increase their power. The idea is to treat drug trafficking and armed organizations as a direct threat to the state. This rhetoric is similar to Nayib Bukele's model in El Salvador, especially in the defense of mega prisons and the use of the law as a tool to crack down on gangs. Trump saw the result as a chance to regain influence in one of the most important nations in South America. Rubio pointed out cooperation in security and migration. Milei celebrated the advance of freedom. Flavio Bolsonaro used the victory as an example for Brazil. The chain reaction showed that the Colombian election was no longer just a domestic issue and became part of a continental shift. The inauguration is scheduled for August 7, 2026 if the result is confirmed by the electoral authorities. Until then, the pressure will be high. On one side, the right wants the vote to be respected without any maneuvering. On the other, Petrism tries to maintain its position by using the narrow margin as an argument. And the conservative allies, both inside and outside Colombia, celebrated as if they were witnessing another piece fall from the left side in Latin America. Milson Alves, international relations analyst, and my goal is to keep you truthfully informed every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.